Originally, Son was a pretty basic continuous scrolling action game where the player shoots projectiles, only coming to a complete stop between the next area where you fight walls of enemies before being able to progress. The gameplay was quite tedious and repetitive, as was typical for games of the era, but a few years later, NEC Avenue with cooperation by Capcom would bring us Son 2 for the PC Engine in 1989. Gone are the automatic scrolling stages from the original Son, as this sequel is more of a standard action platformer, with things like sub-weapons and power-ups. The game feels very different from that of the first game, and that could be attributed to the fact that this game was originally going to be a PC Engine port of the 80s Capcom medieval action arcade game, Black Tiger. But somewhere along the line, NEC and Capcom decided that the game would be reworked to be a Son game. Seeing that Black Tiger was a template for Son 2 seems to make a lot of sense when you look at how the platforms are laid out. You climb vines in a similar manner, and you have a weapon that extends that is very reminiscent to the game that it derived from. With the game's title being Son 2, it implies it's a sequel, but the plot is almost identical to the first game, with the Ox King kidnapping your friends still being a thing here. Personally, I feel like this game is more of a retelling of the source material, but I digress. One thing that I will say about Son 2 is that despite its cutesy appearance, it's pretty hard, making it even more similar to Black Tiger as the game is quite difficult and most of the time you're struggling for resources just to stay alive. It's pretty brutal. The music isn't anything to write home about, but it fits what's happening on screen, although there really isn't a whole lot of variety in these basic compositions. But all that aside, for a game that came out in the 80s, I do feel like Son 2 is a fun little action game that you can only play on the PC Engine. And for about $40 or so for a complete copy, I'd say it's worth adding it to your PC Engine collection.